Okay. Hi, everybody. So last session for the day, and after that we have two important events. We have the last keynote of the day, and then finally we have the round table. So the program session now, keynote, Professor Lessard from Canada, and Julien Schechter will animate a round table at the end. Just a last comment, again, logistics. Before leaving for the boat, I prefer to have all people who will participate here, because I have to fill a list who has AG, who has half price, etc. So we have to check. To fill a paper, it's logistics. So please, all people who will go with us to the social event, try to be here at 5 when we finish, or 5:30, so that we can make the checking. Okay, so the program is clear? Nice. So now I'm pleased to give the mic to Professor Ott. Mr. Ott. Dr. Ott. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the introduction. So thank you for being present this afternoon in this healthcare session. So we are going to discuss healthcare-related topics, mostly exergames in the first presentation made by Fabio Solari. And then we'll have a second presentation, and that will be a really short session this afternoon because we have only 2 publications. So please welcome Fabio Solari, who's going to present his paper. Thanks a lot.
Good. Perfect. Non, c'est juste qu'on ne trouvait pas la présentation. Good.
Non, ça s'affiche pas. Non, parce que là, c'est pas le bon.
Ah, on n'est pas...
Non, vous n'êtes pas dans le bon... Vous n'avez pas cliqué au bon endroit. Normalement, c'est celui-là.
Good.
No, perfect. Thanks. Yeah.
Good.
It's
good.
works.
Nice.
Okay. Thank you for an introduction. This talk is about a web-based framework for the management of a multi-platform exergame. The aim of this work was to simplify the interaction between the doctor and the patients. The doctor allowed them to access the data of the exergame in an automatic way, and for the patient to be simple to download and use the exergame, since they are adapted to the different platform. The reason is to reduce the global cost for the institution, since they do not have to provide the devices, and for the patient they can do the exergame by using own device. Essentially, this is not a new idea. There is already works about this topic, some study about medical platform, exergame in healthcare, and also someone did work similar to our to provide a web platform for exergame. And there are also commercial solutions. We know this is the state of the art. But I try to contextualize my work. This is done inside the project, Interregal Cotra project between Italy and France. These are projects where the public clinical service are the center. And then there was a clear statement to develop a custom framework inside this project, not to use what was already available. And another point is to do the data local inside each hospital that is in the project, in order to allow to share this solution between the Italy and France. Otherwise, it's not possible. We cannot use a cloud to do this. This is the classical schema about a web platform to provide exergame. We have from a side the doctors then can access the data of the patients through the web platform, and the patients can download their specific exergame that is discussed with the doctors, and this exergame is adapted to different platforms, for desktop, for tablet, to do it in virtual reality or on the web. And then there is a database, of course, that allows to collect the data. The novelty for these works is to provide, at the end of the project, the web platform freely available for the community, and then also to try to develop the exergame in a way that is possible to use on multiple different platforms, trying to change the user interface according to the device. This is a standard platform where there are an initial web page where there is some information about the framework of the project and for the patients. Then there is the part about registration and the login. And then there is an internal part where patients can download the game for their specific platform. For some reason that is related to the way in Italy is handled the patients and the way to access the public services, this is not possible to use these tools for any people. They must already in charge of the healthy public institution of in Italy, since this is a problem of law. So there is some constraints on this that is related to security of data, but also how in Italy we provide public services to the citizen. We manage the data from the game in order to provide graphics, plots to the doctor in order to provide information about the temporal evolution of the performance of the patients. These are some details in order to allow you to see that is quite a simple implementation, since it must works on the server of the hospital that are in Liguria region, so there are some constraints, and you use the Unity engine to develop the exergame. Specifically, we used exergame from the literature, since our effort is in adapting them to the different devices, changing the user interface, not to develop the game, since this is already done in several versions. And here there is a game that is done for the post-stroke rehabilitation. It is clear that it is easy to do on a tablet or on a PC by using a mouse or a tap, and this is the implementation in virtual reality. So you changed the user interface to allow to do the same game by using different devices. This is not a game that is of literature, was suggested by doctors in order for arm rehabilitation, again for injury or for post-stroke. And then we measure if the patient is able to follow a specific path, and we record the errors. Again, this is simple to see how is possible to implement by using touch screen or mouse. This is the virtual reality implementation. This is instead already developed for virtual reality, and it is a kitchen and cooking serious game to allow Alzheimer patients to perform daily living activities. And this is the implementation in virtual reality. It is quite simple to do. We use a touchful input device, since they use the controller, since it's more stable. And we need to see how to adapt it for the tablet, where you have to use the tap to select the object and the tap to release it. We changed the user interface, and the same for the desktop interface, where you have to use mouse and the keyboard in order to move the object. So this is what we did inside this project. The project are already running, so there is only the pilot study we did to develop the framework together, some patients and the doctor, and we have not tested it by using a large sample of people. What the reason to do this is to enlarge the patient population that can be able to use this game, since there are different versions of this game that can adapt to the device available at home. For instance, some patients told that they used the virtual reality headset of the child in the family to do the exer game, for instance, and then is also a way to allow the different generation in a family to have a common technological point, instead to have a gap related to the age. Is a way to allow children and older people to do some activity together. And the global idea for the project is to decrease the global cost and to improve the patient's well-being. This is only a pilot study. Thank you for your attention.
So, thanks a lot, Mr. Fabio Solari. Is there any questions in the room? Yes.
Do you see any potential problem with people doing the exercise instead of the patient? Because I think about people spoofing the identity of someone else to use the software to make a better score, or, you know, as there's no way to certify that it's the patient that did the exercise.
I see the problem, and this is in the project is managed by the psychologist of the hospital that do some interview with the patients before to to allow them to use these tools in order to have an idea if they are aware of what we will do or not.
Another question? No? I have one. Do you foresee more the patient being onboarded by the doctor in this situation, or is it more likely that the patient will ask for the doctor to use some kind of exert games to improve his therapy?
This is a good question. Indeed, in my experience for this project, the idea comes from the doctor. The idea comes from the doctor. They want to use these new technologies to allow patients to experience a new way to do rehabilitation or assessment, more than from patients.
So basically it means also that the doctor is kind of technology aware, and also maybe do you foresee the doctor providing the equipment, let's say the Oculus or the kind of VR devices to the patient? Or
no, the idea indeed is to provide a different version in order to allow patients to use what they have at home. There is not the public health in Italy that provide this device, not up to now.
yeah, mostly due to reimbursement, I guess, or this kind of policies. All right. Is there last questions? No? So
Okay.
thanks again,
Thank you.
Mr. Solari. And now it's time to welcome Dominique Correia de Oliveira, who's going to present a paper about PRITS, a serious game for law education.
Okay. Thank you and welcome to the presentation of the PRITS serious game. I'm Dominique Correa. Actually, I'm teacher at ESAV, Lausanne, here in Switzerland, the School of Health Sciences, Vaud. And it's a pleasure to be here, and I would like to congratulate the organization of the symposium. The PRITS project, it's a project about the development of serious game with the goal to support the courses on patients' rights given at ESAV to our students. And in the game, the player assumes the role of caregiver, and his objectives are to meet the needs of the patient while respecting his rights. The development of this project, it's a project multidisciplinary with different disciplines like the health sector inside ESAV, but also we have a legal unit with lawyers, and we work with them to make the definition of the topics for the serious games. Topics like the assisted suicide, like the medical secrecy, and it was about some topics of the law very important in the clinical work in hospitals. But this collaboration was also with the Halbasim research axis of the School of Management and Engineering of Vaud. So what was the problem at the origin of the project? The literature show us that actually health education does not sufficiently prepare our professionals to promote patients' rights in the clinical hospitals. And for us, for the teachers, it was very difficult to motivate, but also to explain to our students where is the places of the law inside the health sector. And that's the reason why we think about the possibility to diversify the pedagogical option. And that's the reason we think about the development of serious game with the characteristics of playing, but also of learning. And with the objective to expand pedagogical options. So my presentation will be divided in 4 parts. The game, but also how does it fit into a pedagogical scenario. The content management, and we are very glad to share with you the first results of the implementation of our project, because it was the first year and we use our serious game with almost 300 students this year. So about the game, we can see the interface, and when we are accessing the simulation, we first see the home page with a set of thumbnails. And like you can see in the home page, we have a different situation with different patients with different problematic. And each card represents the description of the pathology. And the teacher can choose the patient and the pathology between the different school of our students. About the game, like you see in the script, it's a description of the patient and his pathology. And the user, the gamer, who begin the dialogue with the patient will have some different options. And between the options, the dialogue will be different. And between the response and the answer of the user, of the student, the knowledge of the law will be mobilized. So what are the options for the user, for the student? We can have some literature to find the answer to the problem. And the dialogue, when he's over, the user, the student, can return to the home page patients and going in other scenario. How do we think about the integration of the game? For us, it was very important to define one thing. The serious game is integrated in pedagogical scenario. So in our courses, we have different moments. One moment before the utilization of the serious game, and one moment after. And what was very important for us to identify some characteristics. And which characteristics? Cognitive fidelity. For us, the more important, like you see in the script is not the graphism, but the immersion in the real situations. And for us, what we searched in our series game was the capacity to make a cognitive immersion for our students. And the first results are very interesting about this point. So, in the pedagogical scenario, we have one moment with the teacher before the utilization of serious game. And in this moment, we make a briefing about the utilization. So we can share with our students the objective of the serious games, but we have an introduction of a course of law with some topics. During the utilization of the serious games, we invite our students to make some search for information. The logic behind is to have a processes who the students must to find the information. The teacher will not give the information because that's the objective of the serious game. And we have another point very interesting. We can play the serious game alone, but also in groups. And sometimes we have some confrontation of ideas in the different groups. And that's very interesting because one thing very important in the law, sometimes we don't have a good response. We can have a lot of good response. So that's the reason the serious game has a potential. It makes some reflection inside the students' groups. And after the utilization of the serious games, we have a moment with a debriefing with the students, and that's the point where we share some ideas, some experiences, and if there needs a consolidation of knowledge and theoretical input. Another characteristic very important for us in the development of the serious game was the development of a authority system, because in the beginning of the development, we would like to imagine a dispositive very easily to use for the teacher, because like you know, the law is a processus. He can move and he can change. And that's very difficult for us, for the health teachers, to have the capacity to change the scenarios. That's the reason we develop interface very easily to manage, and actually all the health sectors, all the health teachers can move, can change, can create new scenarios without the support of informatic sector. And that's very interesting for us. So what are the results? And for us, it was very important to understand if the implementation of this serious game in our courses have an interest. And the assessment includes both assessment, the game itself, but also the impact of learning on our students. And the first results are very interesting because we see better results this year in our students, but it's true we can't make a direct relation between better results and the implementation of the serious game. But there is something we are very, very convinced. The implementation of the serious game impact in our way we teach our students, because we change the processes of the teaching, and that's maybe one way to have better results in our students, maybe. The other point we assessed was the game itself, and for the assessment for the serious game, we use the questionnaire attractive, who is a questionnaire with two characteristics: the evaluation of the pragmatic quality, like usefulness and usability, and the hedonic quality, like the pleasure, the stimulation, or the identification. And almost 300 students respond to the questionnaire, and the first results are interesting. Like you can see in the portfolio of the results, actually the first implementation of the serious game are very near from the rather good result for the first use. Like you see, we have some good results in the pragmatic aspect, but we can improve in the hedonic aspect. It was one of the points the students share with us about maybe the design of the interface, not very how can I say that, very user-friendly. And maybe we can improve this aspect. And another point about the results was the good accessibility, because we can use that in course, but also remotely. And for the students, it's very interesting to have a tool to study for the exams. And about the conclusion, actually we are thinking about new developments, because this project was developed for the students, but actually we have some health professionals interesting to understand if we can develop this kind of tools for the clinical hospitals too, because like you can imagine, the law is everywhere in the hospital, in the health sectors. So maybe it will be the second development of the PRITS project, maybe a project for the health professionals. So thank you, and I hope it will, I can answer to the question. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Correa. So, yeah, I think it's a great example of how serious gaming can improve teaching and learning. Really, really nice. Is there any question to ask? Okay, let's start here.
Merci. I was wondering, looking at the game design of your game, it seems it's a prompt, some text, and then you have choices, which leads to some other text, which is a very classical format, and great because very easy to catch on. I wonder if you had looked at Twine as a tool to do this, because Twine is a very popular tool that essentially does exactly what you're doing. So it's a node-based authoring system that's very accessible. So if you did, why not use it? Or
yeah, actually we think about this possibility to use this kind of tool, but I'm not from the informatics sector, but I can say one thing. For us, I think the interface is important, but we conclude one thing for our students and maybe for the health professionals, the important are the reality of the situations, you know, because for our students, you can have an interface very, very nice, but if the reality of the situation are not very near from the hospital, we don't have the motivation because they are thinking, oh, it's not a real situation. In my future, I will not find this kind of things, suicide assisted, like you show me. It's only in the movies. In the reality, this is not like that. And for us, it's a very, very big problem. It's to develop some situation very near from the reality of the hospital and from the clinicals. And maybe the interface are not our priority, but we can maybe think about another options. It's true.
Thank you, Renaud. Thank you so much, Dominic. We know well each other, I believe, and that's why I will ask you a tricky question. In your serious game, there is a process where students are asked some questions, and depending on the answer, the choice will change and stuff like that. But what is there a threshold, a ranking, a scoring, and is there like you lost or you win stuff?
It was a very interesting discussion with the informatics, because for me, because I work with you, I was introducing in the game design with Stefan, and I learned something about that. And for me, in my representation, the serious game must to be fun, must to have some game characteristics, some challenge. And it's true, in our serious game, the priority was not this point. The only point we have some challenges, it's to, for open another situation, you must to complete the first one. And you can't go up without these results. And that's the maybe only point of gaming mechanics, you know. But it's true, we don't make our priority some the question of gaming. It will be maybe a point to development, because our students, it's true, don't find very fun to complete the serious game, but they find very interesting to improve their knowledge about the law. One question, can we have some fun making law? I don't know. Some lawyers will respond maybe yes, it can be fun to have some question of law, but I think we have a possibility to develop the serious game in this point, maybe. The other point, it's our focus, one more time, was the cognitive fidelity. And that's the reason we don't find a lot of points of maybe the gaming. I don't know.
I jump on Stefan's question. While designing the questions, do you focus more on providing some situations which would bring to the student some kind of the acquisition of soft skills, like being able to answer to some really tricky questions from the patients or their family in some situation? I guess in the hospital it can be, sometimes not super pleasant for the practitioner to answer to questions? Or do you focus more on providing questions which would give a true knowledge of the law, like really the objective knowledge.
One thing I can say, the teaching of the law in our sector, in the health sector, is very difficult because for our students, this is not their priority. For us, the priority is to learn something about the clinical question. But our priority in our serious game was to invite our students to open their mind about one situation. In this situation, what kind of reflection we can have between this difficulty, like the medical secrecy. In this situation, if we have medical secrecy, what can I do? Can I share my information with which professionals? And that's the logic of the serious game, is not to give the new knowledge, but maybe more to invite the students to open the reflection and to invite the student to find the good information. Because the health professionals are not expert in the law, and that's not the goal of the serious game. The goal of the serious game is to invite, to open the reflection and to find the good information in the good places. And that's the reason with the serious game, you have some links to find some literature specific of the law in the health sector. And that's the logic of our serious game.
All right. Thank you very much. I think we're running a bit out of time.
Thank you.
But I think we'll have time for questions later. Mr. Correa.